titled this video Trust in I Am More Than the Occupied State, based on the teachings of Neville Goddard. Although I go through several related concepts, this title made the most sense in summing up all of the ideas. I'd been pondering over how I'd finally manifest things after a long period of no progress, and the most prominent step I took was acceptance. The reality of my mental state is something I must accept. I put myself in if I'm experiencing pain, having something stolen from me, failing at anything, or having a mental argument with someone else. I have to realize these are my mental circumstances. Imaginary acceptance of these conditions is the first step toward actual transformation. Acceptance, the opposite of denying it exists, allows the dread to dissipate. When we're fearful, we deny. When we're confident, we accept. Knowing that all mental issues have mental answers in imagination makes acceptance easy. Accepting one's unfavorable states can be difficult if the person believes there is no way out of their predicament. However, there is always a way to think your way out of any predicament that causes you emotional distress. Therefore, it follows that one must look inward rather than outward for the source of their difficulties. Your sense of self-assurance rises as a result of this realization that the problem is beyond the scope of your mental abilities to address. If you realize that the source of all your mental anguish is a false belief in some aspect of your identity, then you, as the source of all creative energy, may imagine a new belief and put an end to your suffering. It's you who is making a decision to change. Because circumstances are inert and must be awoken and made alive to matter, they are of little consequence in the realm of the imagination. You are the only one who can make his situation relevant to him, in the sense of making it feel like a present reality. Only you have the capacity to take a terrifying idea and internalize it to the point where it frightens you. Only you could consider something so awful and not be shaken by it. The same way your interpretation of an artwork may differ from mine. In the same vein, ideas are works of art. These works of art reflect who we are. Do not let a frightening idea get to you. How we interact to our thoughts is something we can alter. Seeking validation from external sources is futile. A person who is unsure about his own beliefs would look outside himself for validation of his sense of I am. As he continues his investigation, however, he will realize that there is no logical connection between the times he exhibits good behavior and the times he displays poor behavior, or between the times he exhibits intelligence and the times he exhibits stupidity. A man who has no sense of self would look to others to define him for him. But what he can't tell is that the object he's staring at is actually a reflection of himself. Because you yourself are unaware of your identity, no one else has any clue who you are. In this world, we have dimensions that can be measured and described. We have a length, height, and width. Also, we need to figure out who we are. It's crucial that we know who we are. You have the option to define yourself, so take advantage of it. Stop aimlessly searching the mists for the individual who can define you for you. You want the mirror to agree with the fantastic I am, but it can only reflect what it sees. Just say I am, and let that be the sun that instantly burns away the clouds and restores your clarity of vision. When you finish searching, your internal reflection and mental situation will have shifted. When asked, who do I say that I am? Man must provide an answer. Who do I say now, and what do they say now? At this point in the trip, man must provide an answer. He realizes he can't spend his whole life looking for I am. It's merely a reflection, he realizes. He cannot keep looking to the world asking, does this suggest that I am this or that? He must define himself. He must become cubic in a sense, bored of being tossed by the one. He must establish root. The second challenge that root must face is building trust. Who do I say that I am must be answered. But the value of the response to this inquiry depends entirely on the confidence with which it is received. The solution that man gives, which is to trust his own imagination, must be believed in good faith, being enough evidence that he is who he wants to be. But what is he trusting in? I am, which means he is putting faith in himself, telling himself things like, I am worthy, I am loved, I am. In exchange for his faith in I am, the present tense experience of being, he will be granted ecstasy. That sigh of relaxation is a piece of the I am that he set free. Continue defining and liberating I am. Get the hell out of there. Man is solely in a relationship with himself, and that relationship is based on the truth that I am. I am binds you in bondage and I am frees you. I am is the prison, I am is the key. At that point, man realizes he has been bestowed with the ultimate blessing, the awareness that I am. This I am is the finest instrument in the world that must be treated as so. Master the I am and use it to play beautiful music. Do not deny I am. Examine your internal state of mind to learn who you truly are at your core, what your I am is. Recognize that by adding to a discordant self-concept, you have performed I am in a poor tune. The next step is to alter the tone after gaining this understanding. So, we employ I am to move in the way we choose to inside our imagination. To successfully navigate the imaginative realm, one must ground the new mental conditions in reality. States can only affect you if they are made aware of the reality of I am. That leaves success and failure up to one's own creativity. When they tell themselves falsehoods and adopt the attitude of I am, they create a new identity in their minds. You are now abiding by a new one, in the same way. You should let go of the old I am and embrace the new one. When you recognize that you are currently only in a state, that state loses its strength since states have no strength when I am is absent. Tell yourself, I am in the state of dreading these thoughts perceived as only a state, a reaction, and change the state if you find yourself afraid of your imaginary activities. That which confines us, I am, also sets us free. As a result of the abuse I experienced as a child, I have vivid memories and thoughts of terrifying situations. My own mind started creating terrifying scenarios. I continually lived in the state of I am not instead of I am, meaning I grew up consistently demonstrating to myself that I am not worthless, I am not undesired, I am not stupid, I am not hated, I am not abandonable. In spite of my protestations that I am not stupid, idle, undesirable, etc., I found myself engaging in seemingly pointless activities just to disprove their assumptions. If I'm being completely forthright, I knew those ideas were correct deep down. I felt this to be true because of my inner circumstances I found myself in. In my mind, these ideas were as real as anything else. I disliked it and tried to deny it, but I did not believe I could accept the lovely self-concepts. So, while I knew deep down that I was awful, I resisted admitting that I had actually done or felt these things for fear of being trapped. On the other side, I thought accepting alternative notions of myself was part of the answer, but I lacked the confidence to do so. Both of these hands I could not accept, thus I headed towards the only other way, which was denial. I denied under my breath for years that I am not X, whatever awful self-concept it is. But then, since I believed I was that horrible self-concept deep inside, I would manifest it into my reality, and eventually the inevitable will occur. When does the inevitable happen, and what is it? The fruit of my own imagination, the seeds of my own thoughts and emotions. The one reason why I always felt defeated whenever it showed up. I could only examine my error in judgment. For some reason, I was refusing to take credit for my own success. In the past, I have been blind to my own feelings about myself. I was so concentrated on what I did not want to be. I was so focused on what I did not want to happen. I did not look at I am. As a result, I was unable to zero in on the source of the issue or the remedy. Since I am the source of the problem, I must also be the key to its resolution. We are, or at least I am, traveling through multiple states in my mind right now. Therefore, when you recognize your true nature as the I am that precedes all states, you come to believe in your own malleability. My heart's wish is to be free of those emotions. But I know that just because I want something badly enough does not make me that thing. Even if you secretly hope you're still an X, that won't change the fact that you're not. Do not equate the absence of longing with contentment. The point is to reach a place where you no longer wish for things or dwell on the ways in which you are not what you truly want to be. I am is the title. Why not just say I am worthy, I am educated, I am needed, and I am loved instead of fighting with I am? If I am still struggling against my ideas and losing ground, then I have not yet occupied the new state. For in order for a state to be occupied, it must be with I am. Rather than constantly arguing about why you aren't a self-concept, just accept that I am. Saying I am, with an attitude of acceptance of the present moment, puts an end to the struggle within. Consider myself to be the idealized version of yourself. The people who live inside of you are only reflections of yourself, therefore you have nothing to prove to them. There's no need to physically fight. If you tell yourself you're a winner, you will be. Let's look at a well-cited quote to see how it applies in practice. An assumption, albeit erroneous, if persevered in, will solidify into fact. Think on these words as you go about your day. Repetition will turn this phrase from a scentless cliche into a vivid olfactory experience. Give in to its allure and fascination. Take a close whiff and linger there until you've uncovered every nuance. Get a feel for the meaning of each word by reading it in its context. If you do the same analysis I did, you'll probably come to the same conclusion, albeit untrue is the key phrase. The terms assumption and persisted are also quite significant. But the words albeit untrue come with a certain degree of leeway that the others do not. We are presuming something to be true that we currently know to be false, therefore this assumption is wrong. This is something that must be accepted. If we do not accept this, we'll try to force ourselves, but force indicates several powers at play. The only thing that has any real power within you is the I am that is deep within your soul. Thus, consent fosters togetherness while coercion breeds discord. When you finally accept it, you won't have to spend all day trying to convince yourself of its veracity, and that should bring you some much-needed comfort. It's not true, except that the underlying assumption isn't true right now. The question becomes, what are we assuming that is false? We are adopting a state about ourselves. When we assume we're appropriate a state, we must be sure to do so because we will ultimately benefit from it. It's time to start harvesting again. For this to work, we have to assume the state in which we would like to find ourselves. On the basis of how I currently feel, it is clearly not the case. Moving to a different state would make the assumption feel less like a far-off hope and more like a present fact. Now that we have less resistance by accepting the assumption is incorrect, meaning it contradicts my current state, let us analyze what Neville is trying to tell us to do with this erroneous assumption. Imagine Neville asking you this question. The assumption you want is incorrect about yourself, but what if what you are now is also an assumption, and the only reason why you perceive it to be real is because you are relying in it? The only reason you're accepting and feeling what you are now is because you're relying in what was once an assumption that was wrong. Do you think your story would be different if you gave more credence to a different assumption? If this is the case, then who or what I am right now is only as real as I allow it to be. It is a dream in a way that I forget was a dream. A state is a dream that I'm imagining about myself. Maybe a nightmare, but I can always awake from it as I am the dreamer. Apart from the dreamer, there is no dream, hence the assumption is untrue. But if I were to experience it as being true within myself and make it feel real to me, it quits being fake. The assumption holds true in the imaginative realm but is untrue in the real world. The real question is whether or not you would believe your imagination to be the truth about who you are. I hope you believe in imagination, then we persist in the new state until it becomes our natural way of being. Then, in the most natural way, I'll come into your world. We must feel natural about an imagination, for it is as within so without. You may not feel natural about the new situation instantly, you might, but if you don't, then persist. Always keep in mind that the key to persistence is not striving to change into a better version of yourself, but rather existing in that better version. Being it means to feel it. There is no fulfillment in attempting to be, the only fulfillment is, I am. No matter what you've done, I'm quoting Neville, it doesn't matter. You may have been nasty, you might have been a thief, you might be this very night run away from some deed. I will say you are forgiven. Believe now in God. God is your own magnificent human imagination, and with him all things are possible. So regardless of what your history could have been, regardless of what you are doing now, have an object, have a desire, consume a consuming desire. You have the power right now to modify the inner self. You don't have to give in to your fears, funks, or wildest imaginings. You can transform yourself into anything you can imagine. With nothing to hold you back, you can enter the world of your imagination and experience it as though it were true. Imagination cares nothing about your background. Imagination cares nothing if you've made mistakes in the past. Imagination does not even care about your present reality. The mind is forgiving and will reveal all to you. All states in imagination. These are dreams, awaiting your occupancy. So, how does one put this material into practice? Here's what I discovered to work well for altering states. The goal is to change the self. The self as I am, and I am is tied to specific states. So, as Neville said, start from the assumption I am traveling through states. So, how can we shift states effectively? Neville repeatedly stated to trust in God. But what does that actually mean? Also, to paraphrase Neville once more, imagine that your inner presence is a source of limitless wisdom and power. Do not argue the point. You ask this person whether everything is okay inside of you, as if they could hear you. He will invariably answer, yep, it is done. He never disputes your point of view or brings up your history or the limitations of the past. He performed those parts, so whatever you want, go to him, converse with him. Bring it to a head as though it were done, is it done? And seek confirmation from this deeper self, yes, it is done. And then, drop it. Your rational, thinking mind just lacks the depth to initiate all the variables and interactions that would be required to make this happen in your universe. So, don't try to analyze it, leave it as it is. It will happen in a way you never suspect. So, if I were to convert this into a step, I would say, step 1, define a wish. I'm curious as to what you'd think of yourself if this wish came true. So, we're seeking for a self-concept. It has to convey something about you. Consider that a positive answer has already been given to your wishes. It has already been told yes by the one creative power there is, confidence in God, which in the context means to trust in imagination. If you imagine a scene or overhear a nice dialogue and accept it as true, you are putting your faith in God. It's not something you can try to get because you know the answer is yes. Upon your arrival, you can move right in. To rescue yourself from a bad situation, all you have to do is say yes to the things you already want to do out of self-love. I have found this way is the simplest, in other methods that requires confidence and faith. However, there is a skill inside this approach that needs honing, and that is the ability to bypass the rational thinking mind. Whenever a person tries to imagine or hear what they want and then decides to experience it emotionally, they often experience fear. The urge toward disbelieving what you see and hear is the reason your mind comes and steals the blessing. Imagine this new state without giving into the temptation to use your rational mind, and instead train yourself to trust the heavenly eyes and ears. If you can resist the temptation to overthink, you'll find the fulfillment of your desires lying deep within. You will experience euphoria, and it is only natural that your mind will reflect this altered state. This mood of elation is uniquely yours. Adopt whatever emotion represents triumph for you. Your responses to life will shift on their own. Walk in this new mindset of patience. On this level, I will admit that I am in the dark about the tactics that will be used. I need to practice patience and perseverance on this level. However, you now have a seed in your mental garden from which an experience can grow. You already are facing your harvest, so prepare to deal with it. The harvest your experience was previously planted in the same garden. Your harvest is your states. If you want to learn this strategy faster, try teaching it to someone else. Witness the success of the individuals you care about. Hear them out as they share a fascinating tale from their life. Inner self and experience it. Get on with your day, for it has already been accepted. Then do it for another reason, but please do it out of love. Do not give up the new state if you have any sort of disruption between the planting and the bridge. Since only your internal states are conveyed, it follows that all communication is limited to those. Perseverance, on the other hand, is not stressful but rather relieving. It's pure bliss to finally realize your wildest dreams and become who you truly want to be. It's effortless, and the longer you practice and soak in the sensations, the more at home you'll feel in your own skin. Here's what I do not do when I picture a new state for myself. There is no way I can dispute your claim. Both the how and the when are of no significance to me. This is something I have never questioned. I have no doubts in my mind that it will be successful. When a thought of the future comes into my head, I immediately erase it. I delete all grudges towards everyone. To be in that new condition, I let go of these ideas. When you put your reason aside, it's a very natural feeling. An anaconda is a discussion or scene dropped into a conversation to pretend the desired action has already taken place. I like to see this as a dream. Seeing it as a dream is because I already consider my current life to be a dream. It is all dreams to me, so I conjure up a dream like a dream, and then I dive into it. I never get scared like that. The dream unfolds in the third person, and then I immerse myself in it in the first, living through it as though it were real. In this new fantasy of mine, I am simply imagining another version of myself having the kind of life I would like to lead. Yet I'm not putting on an act. I actually experience being that version. Everything he experiences, I experience as well. The people in my head view me the way I want them to see me. I don't fight or question anything. I just say yes to everything that crosses my mind. I feel the yes, not simply utter it. I tell myself, I want to experience being X, and then I hear the voice of my imagination respond, yes. I put all my faith in that yes, and so I do. In order to become the person I imagine myself to be, I believe it is essential to live the life I imagine living. The mind has already agreed to this. If imagination has not responded yes, then you would not be able to conceive it. It's not the word yes that matters, but the emotion behind it. So, alter the world in your mind to be the way you want it to be, or the way it should be. Imagine that the answer to the question yes has already been given to you and that this is the result. Accept and trust in the yes, and then a shift will happen in your feeling, and you'll start to think from and your reactions will change towards your reality. But if it is influencing your thoughts, don't let yourself become overly preoccupied or anxious. The instant you feel you are it, now is the moment you are thinking and feeling from the condition. Keep in mind that our thoughts and actions originate from the states to which we are exposed. You cannot be in want of evidence of what you are currently becoming. The state inside you is complete, it only has to be inhabited. The proof, the dream is there. You must see that the proof of who you are before your eyes is likewise manufactured by the imagination. So, it is in the imagination that one must modify. And the experience you want is within. Consequently, you should train your mind to be a safe haven filled with heaven on earth. Make it the safest place on earth. It has the capability and ability to become one. Tell it anything you're worried about, because it understands your worries better than anyone else. There's a fantasy land where you get to be anyone you want to be. Find it, then satiate your hunger by entering into an experience being it, persevering experiencing it until it becomes natural to you, and then it will naturally enter into your universe.